guys, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time out of your lunch today. Jodie and I really appreciate it. We're going to be keeping you for around 45 minutes, maximum 1 hour during your lunch today, and we're going to be discussing absenteeism. Now, before we dive in, I want to kind of touch on the synergy that Jodie has with Thrive Law and we have here at Altbe, and that's essentially around genuinely caring about people's well-being in the workplace. That's Jodie's profession. She's the founder, managing partner of Thrive Law. I'm one of the co-founders of Altbe, and we kind of just got together and thought, no one's really taking ownership right now of genuinely stepping into companies and caring about people and providing solutions, real well-being solutions that do more than just tick a box. Am I right, Jodie?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's certainly a bit of a trend at the moment. It's quite fashionable to tick boxes around well-being and D&I, but I think that where the real issue is that there's a lot of, we'll just do this training session, or we'll just do this one thing that ticks a box and it looks great for PR or whatever, but actually the reality is there's very little impact. So we still see a massive increase with things like absenteeism, presenteeism, sickness, generally, where individuals feel they can't talk about mental health at work. So it's really about shifting that mindset and removing the stigma around having those open discussions to normalize those conversations in workplaces to help with these issues in a really, I suppose it's like quite a pragmatic way rather than a tick box way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna open the floor. Guys, please be interactive in the chat, because I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions now. And I would love to know, first of all, before we get going, what's one win you've had this week? Because I find in general in the workplace, we don't talk, we get to work, we start stuff, and people just talk about the problems, and we're just firefighting all day. Yeah. Right? It kind of sets us up I find in like kind of like a negative mindset. So I'd love to know one win you've had this week. Now it's Thursday.
Do you want a work win or a personal win, or either?
Whichever one comes to your mind. What's yours, Jodie?
My win was making sure that I did my yoga this week. So it's something that I know really helps me. But when I get really busy being a founder, I'm like, oh, do I have time? And actually I actively made time and really enjoyed it. And I felt amazing afterwards. So that was my win this week.
Thank you. I'm sure after yoga, you feel incredible as well.
Yeah. Literally, right. And I slept so much better as well. It's like making that time. It's only an hour, but like it's like, it's massive difference. So
mine was we've started delivering to some clients this week, which has been incredible. That's on the business front. On a personal front, something that's been really good for me. Yesterday I got a car and I got to go and pick my nan up and bring her for dinner.
That's lovely.
That was like the win for me of the week, I think.
I love that. I love that. We actually had a good work win this week as well. We had 3 new people start on Monday, and they're all young people who couldn't get jobs as lawyers. So we've been able to employ them through the Kickstart scheme to give them an opportunity to actually have some experience, because no law firms take you on unless you've got experience, but no one will give you experience. So that was a nice work win this week, seeing them settle into their new roles.
Oh, that's incredible. Congratulations. So guys, if you're keeping your wins to yourself, that's fair enough. I can't see any of the chat, so I'll oh, there we go.
Amazing. Can I just say, Julie, it's really hard to get tribunals to strike out claims. They say it's a pretty draconian measure. So the fact that you've managed to do that is amazing. It's really rare. So yeah, massive win.
Wow, huge, Julie. Well done. And Leslie said, I made it through from December 27th to now with no alcohol, and I've made a choice to not drink again. I feel so
that.
Wow.
Amazing.
Powerful.
For me, Ryan, I've actually been trying really hard to start cooking a lot more in January. I know I was eating far too much takeaway last year. So I've gone through a full week and I've only been cooking. So that's a big win for me, that personally, to be honest.
With that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Johnny. There's so many business wins that you've got as well. But in terms of personal, like that, the knock-on effect of that in your professional life as well will be huge.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you for sharing. And I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. So I'm going to ask another question. If you could give me a few word answer in the chat, and that is, what does absenteeism mean to you? What does absenteeism mean to you? What's your personal definition of it?
Pops some ideas. Shall I say
Yeah.
what I think it is? So I would say for me, absenteeism is either short-term or long-term sickness at work, and how we manage that more effectively. So yeah, I'd say it's in short, that was a very short definition.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's perfect. That's your definition. I just want to have a look, right, at what all of our definitions are, because a lot of the time we can have a conversation or an open floor discussion about a topic, but if we're not singing off the same hymn sheet, we're all just talking about what we think we're talking about, and then no one's got a clue what anyone else is saying.
Yeah.
So I like
Leslie's just said not being present at work mentally, physically, or emotionally. Anyone else?
Yeah, I like that one, Leslie.
When you're not in the environment you need to be in, or in at any given moment.
Let's have a look. The dictionary meaning, according to Google, is the practice of regularly staying away from work or school without good reason. High levels of absenteeism caused by low job motivation. So even there, right, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different perceptions of what absenteeism is. So we're preparing for this masterclass today, and actually the word absenteeism, everyone has a different thought process around it and what it can actually be.
It's interesting the definition though, that it says without good reason, because then it's almost saying that, say someone has a disability or mental health problem or whatever, and they're ill, are they saying that's not a good reason? Do you see what I mean? It's like that. I mean, that's me being a lawyer, but the interpretation of that word is really interesting, because how I would always look at it as an employment lawyer or as an employer is that it's someone being off, not about they're off sick, not like it's not parental leave, it's not maternity leave, it's because they're sick, not about whether the reason is good or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they just presume it's without a good reason.
Yeah.
And whatever the reason is, it's not good enough.
Not good enough, or you're not believed.
It's going to help you, but it's not good enough.
Yeah, strange, isn't it? Yeah.
So we have our own individual definitions. Google there is a bit rough on people, let's say.
Yeah, Google's a bit mean.
Yeah. So we've got the main causes of absenteeism. So across the base, there's 8 main causes. Let's see in the chat box now. Let me see if you can match any of these up. So I'm going to copy and paste the 8 in a moment, but let's see which ones do you think cause absenteeism? What things that go on in people's lives, in individuals' lives, or across business? So you can either put in the box in the chat, or you can come out and say.
I'm not going to do that because I know the answer to this one.
Okay. Stress, grief, illness. Kerry? Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny, I'm interested to know what you think, because you had an interesting answer to what absenteeism was. Julie's got illness, disengagement. Has he got conflict, injury? Yeah.
Oh, nearly.
I would say, Ryan, especially more recently in the work we're doing at Altbe, sort of the conversations I'm having, I'd say it's more down to do with a lot of mental health reasons. More recently, I think people working from home, it's very difficult to regulate yourself. So I think a lot of people sometimes find it overwhelming to be in an environment where they have to sort of have this facade or certain persona on if they're dealing with mental health issues. I'd say that's the biggest one for me.
Yeah. I'd agree with that, actually, in terms of like what I'm seeing on the ground as a employment lawyer and like in a HR space. Like lots of the absenteeism reasons have been linked to mental health over the last 2 years. We've seen a huge increase.
I'm gonna thank you for sharing, everyone. We've got Julian here, put mental health, family, or personal reasons.
Yeah, great.
These here. So the main causes of absenteeism: minor illness, workplace bullying or harassment, mental health issues, major illness and long-term conditions, family issues, approved leave, commuting issues, and team and management issues, right? So they're the 8 main reasons. And this is just my viewpoint. From these 8 main causes here, I believe 6 of them that it's hard for an individual to be able, or as a manager, if you're working in HR, it's hard to be able to deal with things that are ultimately out of your control. So 2 of these are within our control to do something about, I believe, through education. So if you can tell me which 2 you think they are from the 8 here, just in the chat box, that would be great. So 2 of the 8.
I'm going to be controversial and pick 3, but I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Let's see what comes in here. And thanks for engaging everyone as well. I know I did. It was marketed as you can come in and ear in, but then I've been asking the questions non-stop as well. If you're trying to like eat your lunch, have some soup or a sandwich or something, get your coffee. So 2 of these 8.
What do we think, guys?
Sorry, right? Is it the 2 most important ones? Would you say? My connection was
no, the 2 ones that you think you could have an influence on, rather than situations that you've got no control over.
Jodie, thank you.
Yeah.
Gillian says 2, 6 and 8. Leslie says 2 and 8. Workplace bullying, harassment, team management issues, also approved leave. Yeah.
Any others?
3, James says.
Yeah.
2, 3 and 8, Johnny says. Okay. All right.
Do you want to say your 2 and then I'll say what else I think just on top?
Okay. So from my point of view, I believe as leaders of people and leaders of ourselves, the 2 that we can have an immediate effect, that can have an immediate effect on our lives are number 3, so mental health issues, and number 8, team and management issues. And they can be eradicated with some education and some action really, really quickly. Jodie?
I also think, where was it? Number 2, because again, with education and training for managers, as well as awareness training for the rest of the team, you can actually eradicate bullying and harassment through education as well. So I think it kind of interlinks with the reasons for the mental health stuff as well. I think you can, there's some really good training that you can do about like unacceptable behavior, making sure like policies are clear, like if someone is experiencing it, they know how to call it out. So the impact is a lot less on individuals if it ever does occur. And the idea being that there's 0 tolerance. So I think you can on that one as well.
Yeah. And I guess that can also come down to team and management issues. Like number 2 could be within.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was a bit broader. Yeah, I see what you mean there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Julie agrees there as well. So let's say 2 is included within 8, because I actually agree there. Thanks for picking that up. Okay. And I'm gonna find this here. I'm gonna copy and paste this around this. So that this is around mental health. What it says, right? So over 11 million workdays are lost due to employee stress, whether that stress is due to dealing with employee burnout or overwork, or due to family, financial, or personal issues. Aside from stress, mental health conditions include depression, anxiety, or other illnesses that can often lead to employee feeling unwell enough to miss out on work. So 11 million days, this is just in the UK as well, a year can be attributed to mental health issues alone, right? And the team and management issues, so number 8, is this: when an employee doesn't respect or agree with their management team, becomes bitter after a negative interaction with leadership, or disagrees with their company's decisions, they may disengage and skip out on work to avoid the situation or related stress. Right, so that's, I'd say you could add a bit more to have number 2 in there, which is workplace bullying or harassment as well, Jodie.
Yeah.
But for now, let's focus on number 3, so the mental health, so that those 11 million days a year, what we can do about that. So essentially what I've done there is narrow down from absenteeism, what it actually is, our own definitions, the main causes of absenteeism in the workplace, and then narrowing it down to what can give us the best results to prevent this as quick as possible based on one of the biggest findings, which is 11 million people a year. So I'm trying to pinpoint where we can increase this number. I'm sorry, decrease the
days off, I suppose. Yeah.
Increase the well-being, decrease the amount of days off. Yeah. So what do you think another question, the knock-on effect would be if people would show up and they'd be better equipped to not have mental health issues, that they would be in the long term better equipped and understand themselves a bit better, understand how to show up to the workplace. Like, imagine that knock-on effect within your own individual workplace over the long term. Because I think something that is majorly overlooked, you may or may not agree with me here, is allowing people to understand themselves enough to know how they want to work and how they can show up to work, instead of being told that this is a way to do it.
Yeah. It's really empowering to give people that space to explore. I think a lot of workplaces dictate to people what you have to do when you have to do it, and giving people autonomy and space to have a greater self-awareness, in my experience, has really significantly impacted the well-being of the whole team, because people are more aware of how they communicate, how they receive feedback, all of that. It's all intrinsically linked to well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and with the mental health, so we look at stress, employee burnout, overwork, financial issues, mental health, so things like depression and anxiety. If any of these things above are happening to us or someone in our team, are we looking after ourselves, or are they looking after themselves? And are they prioritizing themselves first, putting themselves first, or are they putting something else first? Mm-hmm. That's kind of a question just to think about. And what are some ways that we can prevent or deal with this? Because I think that there's different ways to look at it. People can get to a point where they're completely burnt out, they're stressed out of their mind, they've got anxiety, but that doesn't just happen in an instant. Yeah. And I don't know about yourself, Jodie, but where could that stem from?
Yeah, I mean, well, I had a breakdown 4 years ago, 4 and a bit years ago, from burnout and anxiety and PTSD, just not managing it properly. So I've actually been there, and it's accumulation of lots of things from, workplace, personal, lack of sleep, all of that stuff that we know we need to do, but sometimes we just don't do. So yeah, I think all of those things that you said, like stress, overwork, burnout, all of that, cumulatively over time, it just starts to chip away at you until there's just becomes a point when you just can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's why the self-awareness piece is important. So knowing when I'm going towards that, to bring myself back, to increase the self-care, reduce the stress in those times. Yeah,
and I loved what you said at the start of the call as well, when you're like, you're really proud that you've created the time to do yoga.
Yeah.
And you're a founder, you're running a company, right? You technically should have the least time out of everyone.
Yeah, but I make time. It's important.
You're sleeping way better, right? You're feeling way better. So you prioritize that. But why do you think, and this is just a question, why do you think that you prioritize that?
Because I know how it feels to be burnt out, and I don't ever want to go back there. And I think it took for me to be that bad and that unwell for me to realize, actually, this is so important. And actually, it's not I'll just go to the gym once a week if I can be bothered. That is part of my schedule. So I have my PTs in the morning, I have my yoga in the evening, I make sure I go and work. They're my, what I call my self-care list. So I write down all the things that are my self-care. So if I need short-term increases of self-care, I revert to that list. And then I've got my long-term ones as well, which help me in the long term, like the healthy eating, all that, like the more long-term goals. But having that written down is like an element of accountability for me, and I get my team to do the same thing. So if you're feeling stressed and you know you're kind of experiencing, I don't know, overwork or burnout, or you're not sleeping, and you know that some of these things are your triggers, then you can increase your self-care list. So you know that the stuff on your stress list is going up. So I have like these two lists, and you can compare them. Just quite a nice way to, I suppose, get it out of your head as well, because sometimes we do a lot of this internally.
Yeah. And how have you, like, you're prioritizing that yourself, and have you found that your team are also prioritizing that because they see you as an influence to them?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that I lead by example, and I'll say, you know, I'm going for a walk with the dogs at lunchtime, or if I'm going to yoga, I make sure I tell people like what I'm doing and actively encourage other people to do that. I invite them with me. We have team sessions where we do it together. But generally what we found is people follow suit, because if they see the leaders doing it, then they think that that's normal. Whereas if the leaders are just either not visible, or when they are visible, just very stressed and overworked and almost making you feel like you can't leave your desk, then they're not going to practice self-care. So it's very much on leadership, I think, to set the tone.
Yeah, I like that. So like leading yourself first.
Yeah.
And then being an example to the team.
Yeah, exactly. And actually what they see is that they see the benefit in me. They see that, you know, if I've done yoga, actually, I feel better. So I'll appear better the way that I'm managing people. So it all has a knock-on effect. So they see the benefits in me and then want to follow. So yeah, I think it's really important if you can do that with a team and lead by example. It can be really profound.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I've got a question to all of us now, and I'd like you to answer it in the chat. What have we been conditioned to believe, or what have we been told if we prioritize ourselves? What have we been told since being young, pretty much? You know, I'd love an answer in the chat. Johnny, if you could unmute yourself, what do you think?
I was typing it then, but the biggest one for me, working in corporate over the years, it's almost been like companies make it feel like a choice, as if you have to choose one or the other, as if you prioritize yourself, you're not prioritizing the business, or you don't care about the business, and you sort of portrayed to be selfish, from my perspective.
And Johnny, I have the blessing of working with you, right?
Absolutely. Blessings mine.
So let's just because I know you, when you prioritize yourself and you do that work on yourself, and you come into the office, how does your day go compared to if you don't do that?
Genuinely, and this isn't just because we work together, but we experience it every day. When I take care of myself the night before, and I'm journaling, and I'm making sure I'm sleeping early, got everything ready for the day, planned. Honestly, you don't even feel the hours go by, because you're in such a optimal state where you're just trying your best in every way to be as productive as you can. And I'm always screaming about it. I'm always telling people, you know what? I can't believe how amazing today's been, but that's because I took care of myself the night before or the day before. So it's really important. And it's funny because it's the business that ends up benefiting from that in the long term anyway, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the misconception sometimes, isn't it? It's that if you're not working all the time, then you're not productive. Yeah. The reality is you're more productive if you have more breaks and do more self-care, because the actual, it's more enjoyable is the work, but also the output, the quality is better, the communication is better, and you actually end up getting more done because you're not just sat there being present but not present, like the presenteeism issue. So yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
well, that's why I really liked number 8 earlier, guys, because I think leadership has such a huge role to play when it comes to people looking after themselves. And I think sometimes in the archaic way of businesses doing things, they underestimate the importance of leadership and sort of well-being and that connection. Yeah,
and everyone's put here, and I like these answers, because the answer that came to my mind was selfish. And Leslie's put selfish, Jodie's put selfish, Jamie put selfish, Jodie as well put shame, Jamie put self-absorbed. Yeah, so we're told to look after ourselves that we're selfish, pretty much self-absorbed. Who do you think you are? Why are you doing that? But the outcome is more productive, happier, more balanced, and you're inspiring people. Like, what kind of messed up world are we living in? You know, it's literally backwards. But before I dive into that, I want if you take away something from this, it's you've got to be selfish to be selfless. You've got to be selfish to be selfless. Something that I really, really strongly believe in. And when you take care of yourself first, you're less of a burden on everyone else.
Yeah.
Because you're looking after yourself and you're understanding yourself, right? And I think I loved what Jodie said before about taking that ownership and leadership herself first, doing that stuff, prioritizing it, and then speaking about it. And because you're educated in it as well, Jodie, you're probably educating your team. Why do these things?
Yeah, do you know what's really nice as well as a founder to see, I set Thrive Up 4 years ago with this ethos in mind, and seeing like the amazing people that we can attract because of that as well. We're attracting people who share that. So then it almost, all of those values are then fed even, it's almost like, I don't know, it accelerates the process of encouraging this type of culture because everybody who's joining shares those values. It's not like you're trying to change the way that people are, like they want to do it, but they just don't know how. And they've been in workplaces. So we had someone recently join and she had to do some back appointments. She was in pain. And I said, look, go in the day, don't worry about it. We're super flexible. Tell you what time you need. And she just said, I'm just so not used to having this flexibility. And like, I can't describe how much this has helped me. So mentally, she was stressed that she wasn't in work, but she had to go to this appointment. And it was like that whole psychological piece around just saying, please don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine. She just was like, I'm just not used to it. And because so many workplaces are so inflexible and so anti-self-care because it's seen as like you say, as something selfish and you should be working. Yeah. So it's really nice to kind of see that people's mindsets then do start to shift, but it does take a bit of time. People don't do it straight away. You really got to kind of, you know, not just lead by example, but also remind them that they can do that.
Yeah, and that's, as you said, it does take time. And I think the world in general is shifting and becoming more like into consciousness. There's more awareness around well-being now and taking care of ourselves. You know, if you look historically, the way we've grown into being in this kind of society, in like harder. There's been more hardship and it's been tough on people. And at some point, there has to be like a breaking point, right? And I think we're kind of reaching that now. So as it has been a tick box exercise, oh yeah, we care about mental health, check, right? Now it's actually affecting people to that level, and that it's kind of there's a breaking point happening right now. So it's no longer acceptable to be a tick box exercise. Now there has to be something done about it. And I've put here, the world's changed now. So the companies who actually prioritize this in their people, prioritize the well-being in their people, and not only will secure a solid future for themselves and their organization, but they'll also secure the best talent in people, because people will feel genuinely like they're cared for. Like what you've just described there, Jodie, like letting the lady go and having that time to herself in the daytime, like that feeling, you can't buy that. There's no wage that can pay that.
No. Right.
It's a way of being.
We've actually seen this a similar thing where you talk about pay. There's no pay that can. We've seen people take massive pay cuts because they would prefer to be in a culture where well-being is prioritized. So, you know, pay is obviously a huge factor for many people. But what I'm seeing at the moment, certainly in lots of different sectors, but certainly the legal sector, is that people are moving away from the traditional, or I just want the big salary in the big office, to actually, what do I want? Because that's what they've been looking at from the lockdowns and the flexibility of working from home, and saying, actually, I don't want that life when I'm on that train every day at 5 a.m. Like, so people are prioritizing well-being over pay in some situations now. And we're seeing it more and more in the recruitment process, that it's actually something that's advertised as well, that is prioritized in terms of like flexibility and well-being.
Yeah. And I think it's the companies that are owning that now, and showing that they genuinely care, that they're the people that are going to have the best workplaces, the most productivity, and the best people.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to naturally attract to them.
And
if it's okay with you guys, could I share 3 tips for the morning to take care of your well-being and how this can benefit you? And if you have a team, also your team, once you teach and educate them on that as well. So yeah, let me know in the chat if I can share those 3 things with you. There's something that I've been doing for years at this point, and I have a pretty robust routine in the morning. Sometimes it's up to 4 or 5 hours, sometimes, but at the minimum, it's going to be half an hour to an hour if I don't create the time. And I've made this really simple. I've thought about it, and I've just narrowed it down to what gives me the best ROI on the least time, and what I've also taught other people through some previous businesses who were growing their own businesses to get the most out of them, the best ROI out of people. So I'm going to share these with you. And again, they're actually, all of them are free things we can do. Free, no cost. So the first is to put your phone on airplane mode when you go to sleep at night. For me, that's the most important thing. We can get super technical and talk about electromagnetic frequencies and affecting yourself and sleep, but just simple, airplane mode at night. Right, so when you wake up in the morning, you have 30 minutes to 1 hour of leaving it on airplane mode. You're going to really want that dopamine in the morning because you're used to seeing the notifications, right? So it's a bit of a give and take at the beginning. But let me know in the chat, what do you usually do first thing in the morning? How soon are you on your phone?
Yeah. I do that, and I also have I also charge my phone in another room, and I don't look at my phone for the first at least hour to an hour and a half, and then I still leave it on airplane mode, and then I go for a walk. So it's like having that's my time without looking at a device in the morning. Yeah. And I spend time with my dogs, because otherwise you're on straight on your phone and then the dogs are just doing their thing going, love me, and I'm not loving them. Yeah. I've been there. But yeah, I think it's a really good point, because especially if people use their phone as their alarm, what happens is they look at the phone and they see the notifications, and they're not even out of bed. So having it in another room as well means you get out of bed, you move, and yeah, you do stuff that isn't on the device. Yeah, and I love that, and I think that's so important, because it's taking us back to being a human and working on ourselves internally instead of immediately going external. Yeah, and there's that way you have no distraction. You actually have time to gather your thoughts, not other people's thoughts, other people's problems. Now think about this. If you're immediately on your phone, it's nothing to do with you. You as a sovereign human being. You're just allowing, through these devices, anyone and everyone, boom, to bombard you. So everything's external. And if you're doing that, you don't even know. If we've been doing that for years, we don't truly know what our own thoughts are, because we never spend time on our own. So our head is actually a sponge for the first 3 hours of the day. And we take in all the information that comes, and it goes straight to our subconscious mind. So we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, right? And it's like a child. Only we create the habits and patterns between the ages of 0 and 8 years old. Then our conscious mind kicks in, right? But what's in our subconscious mind creates habits and patterns and loops. And we have that the same when we're an adult, once we're in that waking state in the morning. So if we allow, say, wake up in the morning, you get an email, it's not a great one. You got another notification, it's not a great one. LinkedIn message, pop, 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 all this stuff going on. If you got the BBC News stuff on, like, turn that off anyway, right? You are allowing negativity into your subconscious mind. First thing in the morning, and whether you're the most positive person, if you allow that in, that is having an effect on you for the rest of your day. Because how you start your day determines how your life is going to be, determines how your day is going to be, and over time, how your life's going to be. Right? So control this thing, because it's a very, very powerful, very, very ideal tool. Do not let it control you.
So that's the first tip. And also there's a few other things you can do with notification settings. Only allow notifications which are relevant to you to actually pop up. Because we live in this world where everything wants our attention and everyone wants our attention, and they have really easy access to us. But which notifications, which apps do we actually want to be able to, I guess, come into our awareness? Yeah, we live internally, right? But we're always going external for all the other things that we're doing in our lives. That's actually a question I had. Do we live internally or externally? You were supposed to answer internal, but I answered it. But we're always going external.
Yeah, it's a good point about the external piece. I think also it's like external validation as well. So it's always looking external. It's almost like people are afraid to be on their own with their thoughts. And I mean, I've got ADHD, so one of the things I've had to really work on, because I actually only got diagnosed last year, so subconsciously I've kind of put these things in place to help with distraction. And having things like notifications, I just have my phone on do not disturb all day, which is very annoying for a lot of people because they can't get hold of me. But then I choose when I look at that app rather than every time it comes up going, ooh, shiny, ooh, because that's what happens. And then you break your thoughts. So, you know, everyone that needs to speak to me, they have to book a call in, and that works better for me, because otherwise I'm just living in my emails or living on Instagram, and you just end up in a vortex. And time just goes, and I can lose so much time so easily. I've got real issues with like kind of regulating that. I always call it like a rabbit hole. So I end up in like a rabbit hole, and then I'm like, oh my God, it's been 3 hours. So I have to be really mindful, and especially if there's notifications coming up when you're in work, or you're trying to get a project done, thinking about that. Just more generally, it's really, really helpful to just put it on airplane mode or put it on do not disturb, even if it's just for like a couple of hours a day. Yeah,
super important, something that's so simple. And the second point I've got here is taking care of the mind. You can call it mindfulness. Now, some people get a bit like, oh, what's that? Like meditation, say, or even you can do something like journaling. This is all something that's helping you and your own mind, right? So this is, again, cost you ink and some paper. But what I find really helps me in the morning is whatever comes to my mind about the day before, the day that's coming, I'll just write it down. So I'll write down any problems or issues I have on that paper. And I also form the structure for the rest of my day, or how I think it's going to go, how I would like it to go. And I also meditate. So that brings me calm, peace. Any worries or anxieties kind of cease to exist. But that's, I don't know if any of you journal here. Jodie, do you?
Yeah, I do actually. I journal on a morning and an evening, but I do in the morning, I wake up with gratitude. So I write down the things that I'm grateful for, but I try and frame it differently every day, because I think it can become really repetitive. So I'm actually, you didn't know this, but I'm actually creating my own journal at the moment, where it asks you like a different question each day and obviously it's effectively asking you the same thing, but in different ways to get you thinking. And then the evening reflecting on what your wins were. So when you asked at the beginning, when you talk about wins, so doing that on a regular basis, making sure 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in an evening, and it massively shifts your mindset. So it sets you up for the day, and then it allows you then to focus on like all your positives and your wins before you go to bed. So I found that for me has been really, really helpful, because of like anxiety and worry, you kind of, like say, you get anything out that's negative on paper, but then you focus on what the positives were from the day or what you're grateful for. So I think it's really helpful.
And do you know what I love then? It's a really good example. At the start, when I asked you what your wins were, you were like, "Oh, these are my wins."
Yeah.
So that's at the forefront.
I knew what they were. Yeah.
You've got probably hundreds of things you could moan about, right? If you really wanted to.
Yeah.
But when I asked the board what's some wins, it's pretty quiet. You know, could almost hear the
tumbleweed.
The tumbleweed going past. But I bet if the first question I asked you all today was, "Hey guys,
what's annoyed you?
Yeah, what's annoyed you? What's a problem you've had?
Yeah.
Tell me about your problems, right? Everyone would jump in.
Yeah.
We'd have tons of problems, and we wouldn't even get past the problem part, because we can talk and think ourselves into problem rabbit hole. Right? So that's something to just bring to everyone's awareness, just from you doing that, Jodie, and talking about that. The fact that you are actively keeping that in the front of your mind, that's probably also helping keep you going and keeping you so positive as well. Yeah. So yeah, the mindfulness, be it journaling or meditation. I want to ask you all now, what other benefits do you think that can give? So journaling, for example, or meditation, or could be going for a walk.
Yeah, I find that so with meditation, I find that quite difficult because of my crazy little busy brain. So which means I probably need to do it more than anyone else. But one of the ways I found to get meditation into the days, I actually do meditation like in the bath or the shower. That's a bit random, but the reason why is that you can visualize the water kind of taking away the day and that kind of thing. So there's ways, if you feel like you can't just sit there and you feel like, oh, it's 30 minutes, that's too much, just do 5 minutes in the shower. Yeah. Or when you're on a walk, do a mindfulness walk. You don't have to sit there and be a yogi to do meditation. You can be mindful in lots of different ways. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a negative connotation. That's not me, I can't do that. But it's about finding what works for you. And you know, some people, obviously, but meditation works for everybody, but some people just don't really connect with it. So it's finding what works for you, and and then you'll know that because of the benefits that you feel.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said there. You don't have to be a yogi. I was thinking yesterday, you don't have to live in Bali or Tulum.
Right? I mean, I'd love to. I'm not gonna lie.
but to actually work on yourself and work on your mind, you can still live in a city and still be in business, because it actually helps you function and perform way better.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So Jamie's put focus on the present moment.
Yeah,
absolutely, Jamie. That's all there is. So focus now on what's happening right now. That's brilliant. And Johnny's put, it's good for reflection and being at one with how you are feeling and actually understanding your emotions as well.
It also, I think it reduces your anxiety as well, because often, certainly speaking from experience, anxiety is you're thinking about the future or what's happened, and you're worrying about things that you usually can't control. So allowing yourself to be present and putting those, whatever the problems are or whatever the positives are, on paper, it almost gets it out of your head. So it does actually make you feel calmer and less anxious.
Yeah. And that's something I'm going to touch on. What you did there, Jodie, was start educating on the benefits of being mindful. Yeah. However people want to do it, right? And the third one I've got here, so we've got number 1, phone in airplane mode. Number 2, mindfulness. And then the third one is movement and hydration. Right? Could be stretching, walking, running, kickboxing, dancing, wherever, right? But in the morning, just moving. And without getting too technical, you know, it triggers a chemical reaction in the body, and it reduces the perception of pain and triggers positive feelings, right? And releases endorphins in our body, which help us feel good, right? The natural chemicals that are released in the body. And our body, this thing we have, which we often forget about, is made of 80% plus of water, right? So let me ask a question. How much water do we drink in a day?
Or do we drink, or should we?
Do or should, you know? Yeah. We're literally, we've got to take care of this vessel that we have, right? And it's 80% water. And most people, I would like to actually look at some kind of study on this, or how much water people actually drink. It's like if you have a car and your car's got no petrol or diesel in it, and you're just trying to drive it, and it needs an oil change. You're not putting oil in it, you're just trying to drive it even faster. You wouldn't do that to a car. Literally wouldn't do it. But we do it to ourselves on a daily basis. And it's something so simple. So Johnny's put, Leslie's put breathing. Johnny's put 1.5 litres, I think. Yeah, Johnny, you should be doubling that. So we should all be drinking around 3 litres a day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing well. I got you. Cheers,
It's quite, I always think it's quite hard when you're on the go. I found working from home was great because I have a big, you've probably seen me drinking the whole time we've been on this.
Yeah.
I have a big glass next to me all the time and bottles all around the house, so that I can, so it's visual, so I see it, and I have water in like bottles in the fridge that in like in a jug thing. So I think like it's almost like you need to change your habits around hydration, because we get used to waking up and having a coffee or waking up and having tea. So I always wake up and have a massive glass of water. And I don't drink coffee anymore. But I didn't think I'd be able to get up at 5 a.m. and not drink coffee. But guess what? I'm fine. So I think we just get used to having it. And rather than having a glass of water, we'll have a cup of coffee. So again, it's just switching those out. I think it makes a massive difference. Yeah,
I've got a cut here from a study, a Harvard study from 2017 on hydration, and it says drinking enough water each day is crucial for many reasons: to regulate the body temperature, keep joints lubricated, prevent infections, deliver nutrients to the cells, and keep organs functioning properly. Being well hydrated also improves sleep quality, cognition, and mood. Right. So if you tell people, go and drink more water, it's like, whatever. But through education and understanding why, then also the benefits of that, and through actually people seeing, or your team seeing you leading the way with something like that, then just imagine the knock-on effect of that.
Yeah.
Right? The knock-on effect of that is outstanding. And imagine the workforce you'd have if people showed up and implemented these 3 simple steps every single day. Because the question is anything that we've just introduced difficult?
No, they all take very small amounts of time as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, they're not difficult. They take small amounts of time,
and they're free, like you said.
They're free, right? And I think it comes from an understanding for the individual. They need to understand why and what the benefits are to them. And I believe that happens through, sorry, were you going to say something, Jodie?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we did something last year, we called it a power hour, where I was just thinking, how can you get people to do this? Obviously do it for yourself, but from a work perspective, like if you want to get your team to do it, there's the education piece, which I think is really important, but also setting challenges. So we did it as a power hour, and every morning, everybody had to do something that helped their well-being. But you could use this and say, right, we want like a check-in and see how, it's almost a bit like a competition in the workplace. So you're all encouraging each other to stay accountable. So obviously you've got to start by doing it yourself first. But I think, from a workplace perspective, how can you get people on board with this? And, think of initiatives where you integrate this in, or challenges, or, because you can do it all remotely. You don't have to be physically with people to do this, but it's almost, I suppose it's that accountability, because then you go, oh, it's only one day, I just won't do it today. Whereas if you have to be accountable to someone, I think it really does help you stay on track.
Yeah, I love that. The accountability, and I guess the gamification of that as well. And this all comes through education. I remember when I was in school, I used to drink, I used to save my dinner money. And at the end of the day, I used to buy a can of Coke or Fanta or Tango or something, right? Until one day someone came to school to educate us on what that does to the body. And I was like, what? Really? And then since that day, I have probably about 2 fizzy drinks a year. I use the word fizzy drink like I went back to being a child there. 2 fizzy drinks a year.
Like a treat at Christmas.
just because of the understanding and the education part that I actually had there. But had I not had that, I would be like, oh no, it's just a can of drink. I had no education around sugar or anything like that. And I think the issue could be that education takes time, and then obviously in the workplace, time is money. But education and well-being is, I believe, an incredible short-term and long-term play. Education in well-being is incredible short-term and long-term play that will decrease absenteeism and increase presenteeism for us as well. And I loved what you said there, Jodie, about the implementation. Like how can we hold people accountable to that, to actually doing that over time? So would you say it's yourself doing something first over time and then teaching that to your team?
Yeah, so that's how I've done it at Thrive, but sometimes people will get someone in. We do wellbeing risk assessments, so we look at things like hydration, nutrition, how much we move, everything, and we can then see what is the main problem. Is if it's hydration, we bring someone in to educate on that. If it's sleep, we bring someone in. So rather than doing everything at once, like try and target what the main causes of stress or main impact on people's well-being is, and then implement that in a strategic way so that you're actually investing in an area of the business that really needs that education, because clearly people aren't getting it right. Because obviously things like putting yoga sessions on, meditation sessions are great, but actually doing it in this way, you're educating in the area of the business that really needs it. So you're likely to have a better impact and a more long-lasting one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And it's also like what you explained there is the depth of vision of something. So it might just look like a glass of water a few times over the course of a day, but what does that do for yourself, for your body on a daily basis and on a weekly basis, then to the people around you, then to how you're showing up in the workplace, like the knock-on effect of something. I think the understanding of that, because it's something that's free, we don't appreciate it.
Take it for granted, don't we? That's it.
Take things for granted, but that comes through education. I've seen Jamie put here, could you explain why fizzy drinks is bad for the body? Drink Coke every day. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn, Jamie. I'll send you loads of voice notes of
now you're screwed if you're getting voice notes for Ryan.
Yeah. Once we get into a voice note conversation, that's it. Leslie put, another reason I gave up alcohol, I drank JD and Coke. Yeah, they're good, great. Yeah. So thank you all for listening in. It's been great. Thank you for engaging as well, especially during your lunch hour while you're trying to eat and probably juggle and another few things. But I've really enjoyed this, like delivery, and having this conversation with everyone. And I think when it comes down to it, I didn't know where we would conclude or how we'd conclude, but it seems like leadership, taking ownership of our own well-being first, instead of expecting other people to do it, we do it ourselves, and then we can bring it to the workplace.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great takeaway.
So that's my personal takeaway. So before we, not the takeaways Johnny had all last year, different to those ones.
So, different type of man now, right?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear some of your takeaways. Leslie's put here, thank you for this. It's been great. We need more subjects to explore and do it again. Yeah. So next month, on the first Thursday of March, we're going to be discussing learning culture, how to create a culture of learning, which kind of leads on from what we've just done, really, in the workplace. So really, thank you for engaging. We're going to be doing the same thing. So prepare to have questions asked. Julie said it's been a really informative session, enjoyable. Look forward to the next one. Thank you, Julie. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with, Jodie?
Do you know what? No, I think you wrapped that up really nicely, in the sense that it's certainly something from my own personal experience I can vouch for, that leadership is very important. But you can have an impact even if you're not a leader by changing your behaviors. That ripple effect is so powerful just by some tiny small changes that we've talked about today. And if you can get that in a consistent manner moving forward, you will start to see the benefits, and so will everybody else. So that, you don't even have to be a leader to do that, because that ripple effect will still happen. But where you can influence leadership, definitely try and do that to have a wider impact in your team.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Jodie. And again, thank you everyone for showing up. We're going to email this out to everyone as well who registered, to make sure they don't miss out. And look forward to seeing you all in a month's time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Hey, guys.